course, I loved music always. But my father told me, okay, you want to sing? You can. But before, you must study, just to have an opportunity, because if nobody then will want to listen to you.
Imagine walking into a packed arena, thousands of fans buzzing with excitement, only to realize the voice you followed for decades might not appear tonight. Andrea Bocelli, the man whose music has touched millions and defied impossible odds, is facing a challenge no one saw coming. Not a stage mishap, not a misstep in rehearsals, but something invisible, something that could silence the very instrument he's relied on since childhood. At 66, his life has been a series of triumphs over darkness. But now, fans everywhere are holding their breath, wondering if this is the moment even his legendary resilience might be tested. What really happened behind the closed doors of that silent stage? Let's uncover the story that goes far beyond the music. The diagnosis that almost never let him live. It's 1958, in the warm, quiet countryside of Tuscany, and a young mother is told something that would shake anyone to their core. Doctors looked her straight in the eye and said that the baby she was carrying would be born with severe disabilities, and that continuing the pregnancy would only bring months, maybe years, of pain. They pressed for a termination, insisting it was the responsible choice. But she refused. She chose to give life, full stop, believing that even a fragile beginning could still lead to something extraordinary. And on September 22nd of that year, Andrea arrived, tiny, delicate, and already fighting his own way into the world. He was born with congenital glaucoma, a condition that made the world a blur of pain and shapes and light that hurt as much as it revealed. Under the harsh hospital lights, his small body would tense and writhe in discomfort. And yet, somehow, there was relief. Music. His grandmother, knowing the power of melody, set up a record player next to his incubator, letting soft piano chords fill the space around him. Every time a note drifted into the room, his breathing slowed, his little fists unclenched, and for a moment, the world was gentle. From the very start, music wasn't just something Andrea enjoyed, it was a lifeline. By the time he was 6, the little boy could pick out those same piano chords on an old accordion, his fingers moving with precision, almost as if they remembered the sounds before his ears did. By 8, he was memorizing entire operatic arias after hearing them only once or twice, replaying them in his mind with astonishing accuracy. His vision was fading, turning the world into a soft, colorless haze. But in its place, music filled every corner. He didn't need to see the notes. He could feel them, live inside them, and move with them. Then, in 1970, everything changed again. 12-year-old Andrea was playing in goal during a local soccer game because his poor eyesight made him better suited for that position. But even there, danger found him. A penalty kick slammed into his head, causing a brain hemorrhage that pressed against his optic nerve. After 2 surgeries and 33 long days in a dark hospital ward, the doctors delivered the news no one could soften. Andrea would never see again. He remembers the moment it hit him, crystal clear. A nurse brought him a bowl of red jello and told him its color. "Red," she said, and something inside him broke. Red was now just a word, a concept, a memory. His family whispered that music might be pointless now, that he should focus on a practical trade. But Andrea refused to give up. He demanded Braille music scores. When none existed in his small town, his mother spent every evening at his side, reading the raised dots to him and translating them onto a battered piano. She taught him to read, feel, and play music all over again. refusing to let darkness dictate the limits of his life. 1 year later, Andrea passed the conservatory entrance exam, stunning the judges with his perfect pitch, uncanny memory, and absolute mastery of music despite his blindness. His world had gone dark, but his inner light, fueled by his mother's love and his obsession with melody, was burning brighter than ever. Where most people might have seen obstacles, Andrea saw new ways to hear the world. And from that moment on, he didn't just survive, he thrived, proving that sometimes the greatest vision comes not from what you can see, but from what you can hear and feel. Music wasn't just therapy for Andrea. It was the compass guiding him to a life that even the doctors who doubted him couldn't imagine. But just when you think the hardest part is over, life was about to throw Andrea a challenge that no sheet music or perfect pitch could prepare him for, a challenge that would test not just his talent, but everything he thought he knew about the world and about himself. The law degree hidden in a piano bar. Before Andrea even stepped onto his first big stage, there was a moment that could have completely changed his path. A chance encounter that would eventually put him in front of one of the greatest tenors in the world. But let's rewind a bit and see how he got there. After his conservatory success, Andrea's parents hoped a bit of stability would keep him grounded. He enrolled at the University of Pisa, his cane tapping a steady rhythm across ancient cobblestones, the city itself teaching him lessons his eyes could never see. By day, he was a diligent law student, studying Braille textbooks and memorizing case after case. But by night, a different education unfolded. In smoky piano bars, Andrea discovered his true calling, performing for small crowds who couldn't see him but could feel every note. This wasn't just a hobby. It was his hustle, and the applause paid something textbooks never could. One evening, a customer slipped a demo tape into Andrea's coat pocket with a simple instruction: give this to someone who still believes in opera. That tape, containing Miserere, a notoriously challenging piece, ended up in the hands of Luciano Pavarotti. The great tenor was stunned and famously said, "Either this kid is a trick of electronics, or God just sent us a miracle." From there, the whirlwind began. Calls, invitations, and a record deal that transformed Andrea's life. By 1994, at the Sanremo Music Festival, he performed Il mare calmo della sera, and the audience fell silent, hanging on every note. By the final soaring phrase, thousands were on their feet, and Andrea had won. Headlines declared him the blind lawyer who sang the law of the heart, and his career exploded with tours and duets alongside stars like Zucchero and Sarah Brightman. Producers wanted him to cry on cue or exploit his vulnerability, but Andrea refused. He wasn't a spectacle, he was an artist, insisting that concerts end with uplifting, spiritual songs. As he put it, "I have seen darkness, so I must send people home with light." Even as his career soared, the demands of fame took a toll on his personal life, including his first marriage, proving that even extraordinary talent doesn't make life's challenges disappear. The private heartbreak. No microphone hears. Fame, as dazzling and all-encompassing as it looks from the outside, doesn't come with a shield for the quiet, personal heartbreaks that no camera ever catches, and Andrea knows that better than most. Even with sold-out arenas, international tours, and a voice that can stop a crowd mid-breath, the pressures of his career began to weigh heavily on his first marriage. It's the kind of thing fans rarely see, the invisible strain that builds behind the curtains, the text messages left unanswered, the missed birthdays, and the distance that grows when every night feels like a stage, and every day is a flight schedule. One winter night in 2000, far from the applause and the grand halls where he made his name, Andrea found himself in a quiet hotel corridor at 3 a.m., holding his baby son, Amos. The boy was restless, and Andrea, in his own soft way, tried to lull him to sleep with a gentle, whispered song. Alone, just him, his son, and the hum of fluorescent lights overhead, it hit him. The nagging, gnawing question that any parent in his shoes might face. Was this lullaby all he could really give? The weight of his blindness, the never-ending demands of touring, the miles separating him from home, they all collided in that moment, leaving him exposed and vulnerable in a way no stage performance could ever reflect. Years later, life threw another curveball. Andrea's daughter, Virginia, went in for what was supposed to be a routine scan, only to reveal a congenital spinal issue that had been lurking unseen. Doctors warned the surgery would be risky and recovery uncertain, and Andrea didn't hesitate for even a second. He canceled 32 concerts, 32 shows that meant money, momentum, and fans. But nothing mattered more than his daughter's health. He flew Virginia thousands of miles to Boston to see a top specialist. And for 6 weeks, the superstar who'd performed in front of tens of thousands slept on a hard hospital cot, living in a world where the only applause he craved was his child's steady breathing. He even prayed in Latin, he later said, because the ancient words felt grounding, stronger, somehow more protective in a situation that was terrifying and utterly out of his control. Thankfully, the surgery worked, and Virginia recovered. But Andrea came out of the experience different, not in a way you can measure with awards or ticket sales, but in the deep, quiet ways life changes you. Gray streaks appeared in his hair that no stylist could cover, a visible reminder of weeks spent awake, worried, and watching over his daughter. Friends who know him well say he can step onto a stage with tens of thousands of fans and feel calm, but squeeze him into a small hospital elevator and his hands might shake. The smell and closeness reminding him of the day he lost his sight completely. It's a reminder that no matter how public someone's life is, some struggles remain private, raw, and unforgettable. And just when you think life might calm down, the world throws another twist, the virus that silenced a legend. The year was 2025, January, and the stage was set at the Arena di Verona, that ancient Roman amphitheater that has hosted everything from gladiators to opera legends, a place where every stone seems to hum with history. 40,000 tickets for Andrea Bocelli's much-anticipated concert sold out in under an hour, and fans from all over the world were flying in, booking hotels, taking off work, all just to witness what promised to be a night they'd never forget. Rehearsals were humming along perfectly. The orchestra was in sync. The choir's harmonies were tight. Andrea's voice was, well, Andrea's voice. Full, luminous, and effortless. Everything seemed to be on track for one of those concerts people tell their grandchildren about. Until, that is, the night before opening. It started as a dry little cough, nothing too worrisome. But within hours, it grew harsh and painful, making speaking impossible and singing unthinkable. The kind of cough you dismiss with a sip of water suddenly became the enemy of a lifetime's work. A PCR test, quick and clinical, revealed the devastating truth. A virus had taken hold, aggressively inflaming his vocal cords, the very instrument that had carried him from Tuscan fields to global stages. Doctors gave orders that no singer ever wants to hear: total silence. No speaking, no singing, nothing at all for 30 days. Imagine that. For a man whose life is defined by music, 30 days of absolute silence is more than an inconvenience. It's a trial by fire. Andrea, blind since 12, had learned to live in darkness. But silence was a different kind of challenge. He couldn't speak to friends, couldn't sing even a note for reassurance, couldn't communicate through his craft. The very thing that had been his refuge and expression since childhood. He resorted to writing, filling notebooks with looping Italian script that spilled across page after page. One entry read, "I have been blind since 12, but now I am also voiceless. This is the first time since childhood that I cannot answer darkness with a song." That line alone gives you a sense of what it's like to have your lifeline suddenly stripped away. Social media predictably went into overdrive. Rumors ran wild. Cancer, stroke, sudden retirement, even whispers that his career might be over. Paparazzi swarmed, hoping for a photograph of a frail legend defeated by his own body. But what they actually witnessed, if they looked carefully, was far more inspiring. Andrea would rise before dawn, walking through his Tuscan vineyard, letting his fingers graze the gnarled bark of olive trees and cypress trunks, memorizing every curve, every texture, committing the world to memory. His lips moved silently, articulating scales, keeping the muscles trained even when the sound itself was forbidden. In that quiet, the man who had conquered the world of music was still fighting, still practicing, still living his craft in ways most of us will never see. On day 31, Andrea stepped into a Florence studio and sang a single line of Nessun Dorma. The engineers paused, stunned. His voice had returned, but it was transformed, richer, deeper, with a weight and gravitas that even he hadn't felt before. Instead of rushing back to the biggest paying audience, he first dedicated a free makeup concert in Verona to the healthcare workers of the pandemic, those people who had carried so many others through the silence. That night, under the arches of history, he hit the high B he had feared was gone forever, and the sound lifted through the amphitheater like a promise. Nurses and doctors openly wept. Andrea, smiling, said, "I was not healed. I was reminded that silence teaches what sound cannot." Singing through life. Here's something that's both quietly moving and incredibly inspiring. When people ask Andrea Bocelli how he keeps going after losing his sight, nearly losing his voice, and facing heartbreaks that would crush most of us, his answer is simple, almost disarmingly so. But it carries the weight of decades. Accept what you cannot change. Change what you cannot accept. And sing while doing both. Those three sentences aren't just catchy lines. They're a life philosophy he's lived by. A roadmap for anyone facing challenges that feel bigger than themselves. For Andrea, the darkest moments weren't the ones people might assume, like the moment his vision failed or the night his voice faltered. The real challenge was learning not to expect pity, not to lean on the world's sympathy for guidance. Once he stopped seeing himself as a victim, he started seeing himself as a singer, a creator, and a connector. That mindset is what fuels everything else in his life, from his music to his humanitarian work. His foundation, launched in 2011, has directed over 50 million euros to projects in more than 20 countries. That includes building schools on earthquake-damaged land in Italy, providing classrooms in refugee camps in Jordan, and ensuring kids in remote areas have access to education they might otherwise never receive. His dedication extends even further. Andrea once auctioned the very first grand piano he learned to play on, raising over $1,400,000 to fund clean water systems in Kenya. It wasn't about the piano itself, he explained. It was about what it represented, the connection between one heart and another. That perspective is what helps him handle the constant tabloid speculation and wild rumors, which in recent years have ranged from claims he's going deaf to conspiracies about secret illnesses. He treats them as background noise, focusing instead on the tangible, monitoring his health, taking care of his voice, and staying active in ways that make sense for his unique life. Walking through his Tuscan vineyard with a rope strung between posts, for example, is a method he uses to stay fit while navigating safely alone, turning a practical necessity into a meditative daily ritual. At 66, Andrea is far from slowing down. He's exploring new musical territory, recording an album in a reversed process where Braille lyrics come first, then sound. He's even dreaming of collaborations with artists he wouldn't normally be associated with, like a female metal singer, fascinated by how different genres can push the voice in new ways. And his curiosity doesn't stop on Earth. He jokes about performing in space, imagining how zero gravity could let a note hang in the air indefinitely. At home, he's thoughtful in ways that might surprise fans. He tells his daughter Virginia that when the time comes, he hopes she scatters his ashes inside his piano, so that every time a key is struck, a part of him continues to vibrate through the music. This phase of his life isn't a tragedy. It's a continuation of a journey where setbacks don't define him. They redirect him. Losing sight, nearly losing his voice, navigating personal heartbreak. These are all forks in the road that Andrea navigates with curiosity, humor, and resilience. Each challenge has led him to new heights, not just as an artist, but as a human being who continues to touch millions of lives through his music and generosity. His story reminds us that the human heart can endure almost anything: loss, limitation, fear, and still choose to create, to sing, and to shine. Andrea Bocelli's life isn't just about the applause or the sold-out arenas. It's about the choices we make when everything seems stacked against us. And if there's one takeaway from his ongoing journey, it's this: the spirit doesn't just survive, it finds ways to thrive, to connect, and to leave a legacy that keeps resonating long after the first note fades. If that incredible resilience sparks something within you, please take a moment to leave a comment below. Subscribe for more stories that turn heartbreak into inspiration, and check out the next story that pops up on your screen. It's shocking. Thanks for watching.